ordinary flight turned into an unimaginable test of courage when an 18-year-old girl found herself facing a responsibility no teenager should ever have to carry. She was not a pilot, not a trained professional, and not someone who had prepared for such a moment. She was simply a young passenger, like hundreds of others on board, expecting to reach her destination safely. Yet, when the situation collapsed into chaos and fear, she became the single thread holding 300 lives together. Courage does not always arrive with confidence or certainty. Sometimes it appears in the form of a trembling decision to stand up when everyone else is frozen by fear at 35,000 feet in the air. Panic spread quietly but relentlessly. Whispers passed through the cabin, eyes searched for answers, and the weight of uncertainty pressed down on every passenger. In moments like these, most people look away, hoping someone else will take control. This young girl felt the same fear, the same instinct to disappear into her seat and pray for rescue. Her heart was racing, her hands were shaking, and her mind was filled with doubt. She knew exactly how unqualified she was. She knew how high the stakes were. Yet courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. What made her step forward was not confidence, but conscience. She understood that doing nothing was also a choice, and that choice could cost hundreds of lives. She remembered fragments of knowledge from her past, incomplete and imperfect, but enough to give her a chance. That chance was fragile, terrifying, and uncertain, but it was still better than silence. Raising her hand in that moment was not heroic in the way movies portray heroism. It was quiet, hesitant, and deeply human, but it was also the bravest act on that plane. As she moved toward the cockpit, the reality of her decision hit her fully. Every step felt heavier than the last. The door ahead of her separated life from death, hope from despair. She knew that once she crossed that threshold, there would be no turning back. The fear she felt was overwhelming, but so was the responsibility. 300 people, each with families, dreams, and unfinished stories, were counting on her without even knowing it. That weight could have crushed her, but instead it anchored her. It gave her purpose. Inside her, a battle was unfolding. One voice screamed that she was too young, too inexperienced, and too unprepared. Another voice, quieter but stronger, reminded her that fear could not be allowed to decide the outcome. She did not believe she was special. She did not believe she was a hero. She believed only that someone had to try. That belief became her strength. True courage is often misunderstood. It is not dramatic speeches or fearless confidence. It is the ability to stay present when everything inside you wants to escape. This young girl's courage was shown in the way she listened carefully, followed instructions, and refused to let panic take control. Each second she remained calm was an act of bravery. Each decision she made, no matter how small, carried enormous consequences, which she was learning in real time. Under pressure so intense it could break even seasoned professionals, her youth did not make her weak. It made her honest. She did not pretend to know everything. She asked questions. She focused. She trusted guidance. In doing so, she demonstrated a rare form of courage, the courage to admit fear without surrendering to it. Many adults spend their lives avoiding responsibility at much lower stakes. This teenager accepted it when it mattered most. The lives she was trying to save were not abstract numbers. They were real people, breathing the same recycled air, feeling the same terror, and hoping for a miracle. Without knowing their names or faces, she cared enough to risk failure. That willingness to risk everything, including being blamed if things went wrong, is what separates courage from chance. She knew that success was not guaranteed. She knew that mistakes could be fatal. Still, she chose action over comfort. In that moment, age became irrelevant. Titles became meaningless. Training, manuals, and certifications mattered less than resolve. What carried her forward was a deep sense of responsibility to others, something that cannot be taught in classrooms. It is born in moments of crisis, when character is tested without warning. She passed that test not because she was fearless, but because she refused to let fear decide the fate of others. When people later called her a hero, she struggled to accept the word. In her mind, she had simply done what any human being should do when lives are at stake. But that is exactly what makes her courage extraordinary. It reminds us that heroism is not reserved for the powerful, the experienced, or the prepared. It can come from an ordinary person in an impossible situation, choosing to stand up when the world is falling apart. Her story challenges a comfortable illusion many people hold that someone else will always step in when things go wrong. Sometimes there is no one else. Sometimes the responsibility lands on the least expected shoulders. In those moments, courage is not about being ready. It is about being willing. This 18-year-old girl was willing, and that willingness became the difference between tragedy and survival. Unimaginable courage is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up quietly, in a shaking voice that still says, "I'll try," in hands that tremble but do not let go, and in a heart that chooses others over self. Because of that courage, 300 people were given another sunrise, another chance, another life. And because of her, The world was reminded that even in the darkest moments, a single brave decision can change everything. In the most extreme situations, pressure has the power to either shatter a person or reveal a strength they never knew they possessed. For an 18-year-old girl sitting in the cockpit of a passenger jet, pressure was no longer an abstract idea, it was a crushing, relentless force that filled every second. Hundreds of lives depended on her ability to remain calm, focused, and responsive while facing a situation that would overwhelm even highly trained professionals. Calm under pressure is not about being emotionless. It is about controlling chaos when fear threatens to take over. And this young girl embodied that truth in the most extraordinary way. Asterisks from the moment she realized the responsibility placed on her. Panic tried to take control. Her heart raced, her breathing became shallow, and her thoughts threatened to scatter in every direction. The noise of alarms, the unfamiliar instruments, and the vast sky outside the windshield all competed for her attention. In such moments, the human brain naturally seeks escape, but escape was not an option. She understood that allowing panic to rule her mind would lead to mistakes, and mistakes at this altitude could be fatal. So she made a decision that would define everything. That followed. She chose calm. Remaining calm did not come easily. Every instruction from air traffic control required intense concentration. She had to listen carefully, repeat commands, and act precisely, all while her body was flooded with adrenaline. Each task felt monumental, even the smallest adjustments, demanding total focus. The pressure was amplified by the knowledge that fuel was limited, weather conditions were unstable, and the margin for error was razor thin. Despite this, she did not rush. She did not freeze. She moved forward one step at a time, proving that calmness is not a natural trait but a deliberate choice. What made her composure? Remarkable was her lack of formal training. Experienced pilots trained for years to manage stress, yet she had only instinct, guidance, and determination. She leaned heavily on communication, trusting the voices guiding her from the ground. Instead of pretending to know what she did not, she listened. That humility became a powerful tool. By staying calm enough to follow instructions accurately, she transformed overwhelming complexity into manageable actions. One switch, one lever, one adjustment at a time. The pressure intensified as the aircraft began its descent. Turbulence shook the plane, clouds reduced visibility, and the unfamiliarity of the controls tested her limits. Passengers behind her were crying, praying, and preparing for the worst. She could not hear them, but she could feel the weight of their fear. It pressed against her from every direction, threatening to break her focus. Still, she kept her voice steady when speaking into the radio. That steadiness was not accidental. It was her way of protecting herself from panic. Calm under pressure often means accepting uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. She did not know if she would succeed. She did not know how the landing would end. What she knew was that worrying about the outcome would only distract her from the present moment. So she narrowed her world to what mattered most. The next instruction, the next action, the next breath. By doing so, she maintained control over her thoughts. Even when everything else felt uncontrollable, her calmness also served as a lifeline for others. Air traffic controllers could guide her effectively because she remained responsive and composed. The cabin crew, sensing that control had not been lost, were able to keep passengers informed and slightly reassured. In crises, emotions spread quickly, and panic can become contagious. Her ability to stay calm acted as a barrier against total chaos. It did not eliminate fear, but it prevented fear from escalating into disaster. The true test came in the final moments when the aircraft aligned with the runway. Strong winds pushed against the plane, demanding precise corrections. The ground rushed closer, and there was no room for hesitation. Many people would have frozen under such pressure, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was about to happen. She did not. She trusted the process, followed the guidance she was given, and kept her movements controlled. That calm discipline made the difference between a catastrophic failure and a survivable landing. Calm under pressure is often mistaken for natural talent, but in reality, it is a skill born from mental discipline. In her case, it was driven by purpose. She was not focused on herself, her fear, or her age. She was focused on the lives depending on her. That outward focus helped her regulate her emotions and keep her mind clear. When fear did rise, she acknowledged it and then redirected her attention back to the task at hand. After the plane finally came to a stop, the calm she had maintained collapsed into emotion. Only then did the tears come, the shaking, and the release of tension that had been held back for so long. This revealed an important truth. Calm under pressure does not mean a person is unaffected. It means they delay their emotional response until it is safe to feel it. Her composure during the crisis was not a sign of weakness or detachment. It was an act of control. This story proves that calmness in extreme situations is not reserved for experts or leaders. It can emerge in anyone who chooses focus over fear. An 18-year-old girl with no obligation, no guarantee of success, demonstrated that staying calm can be just as heroic as bold action. Through her composure, she turned confusion into clarity and terror into survival, showing the world that sometimes the strongest force in a crisis is a calm mind refusing to surrender. A true hero is often imagined as someone powerful, experienced, and fully prepared for the challenge ahead. We picture uniforms, titles, medals, and years of training. Yet real heroism rarely follows that script. Sometimes it appears in the most unexpected form, at the most unexpected moment, carried by someone who never sought recognition or praise. The story of an 18-year-old girl saving 300 lives forces us to rethink what it truly means to be a hero, because her actions were not driven by ambition or confidence, but by an instinctive sense of responsibility toward others. She did not wake up that day believing she would change the course of hundreds of lives. She boarded a plane like any other passenger, with ordinary thoughts and ordinary plans. When the crisis unfolded, heroism was not a label waiting for her. It was a choice she had to make in real time. She could have stayed seated, hoping someone else would step forward. No one would have blamed her for that. But heroes are not defined by what they are allowed to avoid. They are defined by what they are willing to face. In that moment, she chose to face the impossible. What makes her a true hero is not just the outcome, but the intention behind her actions. She did not act to be seen, praised, or remembered. She acted because lives were at risk. This selflessness is the core of genuine heroism. It is easy to admire courage when it brings applause, but it is far more powerful when courage is offered, without any promise of reward. She stepped forward knowing that if things went wrong, she could be remembered not as a savior, but as a failure. Accepting that risk for the sake of others is an extraordinary moral strength. Her youth adds another layer to her heroism. At 18, most people are still learning who they are, still discovering their limits, still unsure of their place in the world. She was no exception. Yet when the situation demanded maturity beyond her years, she rose to meet it. This shows that heroism is not tied to age or experience. It is tied to character. When tested under extreme pressure, her character revealed compassion, courage, and resilience far beyond what anyone expected. A true hero also understands her own vulnerability. She was aware of her limitations, aware of her fear, and aware of the consequences of failure. Instead of letting these realities stop her, she carried them with her and moved forward anyway. This honesty with herself made her stronger. She did not pretend to be fearless or invincible. She accepted that she was scared and chose to act regardless. That willingness to act while afraid is one of the purest forms of heroism. After the lives were saved and the danger had passed, the world rushed to give her a title. Headlines called her brave, miraculous, and heroic. Yet she resisted these labels. She spoke with humility, insisting that she had only done what anyone should do in such a situation. This humility is not false modesty. It reflects a deep understanding of what heroism truly is. True heroes do not see themselves as extraordinary. They see their actions as necessary. They do not elevate themselves above others. They remind others of what is possible. Her story also highlights an important truth about responsibility. In critical moments, responsibility does not always fall on those best equipped to handle it. Sometimes it falls on those who are simply present. When it does, excuses become meaningless. What matters is the choice that follows. She did not ask why this had happened to her or complain about the unfairness of the situation. She accepted responsibility without hesitation, understanding that lives mattered more than comfort or fairness. A true hero leaves a legacy that extends beyond the immediate act. Her actions did not just save lives in that moment. They inspired countless others who heard her story. She became proof that courage is not limited to certain professions or personalities. Her story encourages ordinary people to believe that they, too, are capable of extraordinary acts when circumstances demand it. This ripple effect is one of the most powerful outcomes of heroism. It changes how people see themselves and their potential. Heroism is often romanticized, but this story strips it down to its rawest form. It shows that heroism is stressful, terrifying, and deeply uncomfortable. It demands sacrifice, focus, and emotional strength. It offers no guarantees. The fact that she succeeded does not diminish the risk she took. On the contrary, it highlights it. Every heroic act carries the possibility of failure, and choosing to act anyway is what makes it heroic. In the end, what defines her as a true hero is not that she saved 300 lives, but that she chose others over herself when it mattered most. She did not wait to be ready. She did not wait to feel confident. She acted with compassion and courage in a moment of crisis, proving that heroism is not something you are born with or trained for. It is something you choose. Her story stands as a powerful reminder that in the most critical moments of life, true heroes are not found, they are made.